Morning, all. All right, so news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Monday, February the 20th. Happy President's Day to those in the US, and happy Family Day to those in Canada, and to those in Europe. Hey, what's up? All right, so Matt Barzal, the Islanders coming out and saying that he's out indefinitely with a lower body injury. Now, Lane Lambert was asked by the media, will he be back before the end of the season? Wouldn't commit. Would he be ready to be, would he be ready for next training camp? Wouldn't commit to that either. So this is something serious. It likely does take him out for the rest of the season. This will dramatically affect the Islanders' ability to make the playoffs. And it's too bad because Horvat and Barzal had really good chemistry going. And now, we're going to have to wait until next season to see where that takes him. In all likelihood, anyways. When the coach is that cagey and doesn't want to answer the question and just keeps saying it's indefinitely. It's just indefinitely. That's not great. That's not great news. So all the best to Barzal in his recovery. Also good news for Pittsburgh fans. Tristan Jarry will be returning to play against the Islanders. So all of a sudden, I would think most of the betting lines are going to go over towards Pittsburgh, probably by a lot. And so we'll see what happens there. Jarry being back means that Pittsburgh's going to have more reliable goaltending. You're not going to be overplaying DeSmith. The trick with Jarry, of course, is make sure that he is going to be healthy going into the playoffs. Last year's playoffs, we saw what happened with Pittsburgh's goaltending, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of workload he's given going forward and whether they just, play him a ton and just, cross their fingers that he stays healthy. But it really is important for Pittsburgh if they're going to have any chance in a first-round matchup with, say, a Boston or anybody like that. That they need to have healthy goaltending. Jarry has to be in the net. Timo Meier is day-to-day. It's an upper body injury. Normally I wouldn't report on this, but of course Timo Meier, lots of reports out there about who might be in on him, might not be. Notice I'm not talking about who may or may not be in on him because it's a lot of teams, and I would imagine almost every team in the league would love to have a Timo Meier right about now. The cap hit he has right now is not that bad, but of course that qualifying offer of $10 million after this season is something that teams are going to want to discuss. I would think they'd want to discuss extension with him before picking him up. And if Meier doesn't want to talk extension, that's up to him. And again, I'm just throwing that out there, just saying, hey, this is going to be an interesting trade deadline because now we've seen that Taves isn't going to be traded by Chicago. We still don't know what's going on with Kane. Kane still hasn't 100% made up his mind. Again, though, yesterday after getting that hat-trick goal, He did kind of take a lap that made it look like maybe that's it for him in Chicago, but who knows? Again, we're going to read into it, right? Because of the time of year and because of his contract status. And he's earned the right that if he says, I want to stay in Chicago, he can do that. So we'll see what happens with Meier, but he's day to day. It's not seen as anything major and shouldn't affect interest of other teams in him. That being said, we'll see how long he's out, right? Now, Gavrikov, who's been scratched for trade-related reasons. He and Chychrun being the two. And again, I understand, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to add a caveat to that. The thing with that is that there should be a timeline here. Like they should be going to the player and saying, okay, you may miss the next 2 or 3 games. We're working on a deal for you. You're going to be out for that amount of time. This is looking really more and more open-ended in that the reports are still there's not close to a deal for Gavrikov or Chychrun. So we're 11 days out from the deadline, and if I'm a team looking to trade for Chychrun or Gavrikov, there's that fine line between, okay, so they're healthy, and are they in game shape? Because if they're not playing in games, that's not the same. Like being in practice, you can practice all day. You can practice as much as you want. It's not the same as being in the game. Aaron Portzline is reporting that Gavrikov, there's a trade that may be in place for Columbus, but then in order for that trade to take place, the team they're trading him to would have to make a deal first. With the cap being as it is, the idea that there's going to be more transactions where 3 teams are involved, like the Ryan O'Reilly one, that's absolutely looking like that's going to be the case at the deadline. And so it may be affecting the ability to get the Gavrikov deal done. Apparently they wanted 3 firsts. Now, not necessarily meaning first-round picks, but first or first-round equivalent, meaning former first-round picks. And so we'll see how it turns out. It doesn't mean that's what they're getting, but if there is a deal in place, I hope it happens soon because I'd like to see Gavrikov playing. Again, I'm fine with them sitting a guy for trade-related reasons, but there should be a trade upcoming within, I would say, a week. I would say after a week, you're starting to kind of Well, again, I think you're hurting the asset because if I'm a general manager, I'm going to say, okay, so Chikrin hasn't played in 3 weeks. What kind of shape is he in? What are we getting? So we'll see what happens. I know it hasn't been 3 weeks. I know I'm just using that as an example, but yeah, we'll see what ends up happening and who ends up getting traded, and maybe it happens today, right? Although it's a stat holiday, so maybe not. We'll see. So the Jets, with the loss last night, things are getting pretty dark for the Jets right now. Quietly, the Avalanche have pulled within 2 points of the Winnipeg Jets. So they're 2 points back. They've also played one less game. Now, if it comes down to regulation wins, Winnipeg has that tiebreaker. But they're only 4 points ahead of the Wild. So Minnesota, who have had their struggles, have put together enough points that they're only 4 points back of the Jets now. And while we're at it, they're only 6 points ahead of the Flames. And if they fall behind all three of those teams, the Jets would miss the playoffs. So for the Jets, it is a rough schedule for them right now. This road trip is pretty brutal, but I mean, going through New Jersey and the Rangers has definitely shaved some points off some teams already this year. But yeah, Winnipeg needs to start getting some wins here before the Avalanche pass them, before the Wild really start to ramp up their game. And like last night's game for Minnesota, that last, I mean, it's not last second, but it's close enough. That win that they got last night, I thought was really impressive. That they didn't let that goal in the last minute cause them to shut down or panic. They just went down and got it again. So if Minnesota's getting their confidence back, that's bad news for Winnipeg because they desperately need to get things going again. And of course, then last night's game, Nick Ehlers left during the third period. I haven't heard anything about him being out or what's going on with him yet. But yeah, this is not great right now for Winnipeg. And also on that note, Gabe Landeskog skating today. Yep, skating on his own. It's a light workout, but the fact that Landeskog has started skating is great news if you're an Avs fan. Landeskog is going to come back and play, and Colorado hasn't had him all season. They've also been missing Makar on and off for what, a month now. We've been dealing with him, be day to day here, day to day there. Comes back, gets hurt. So yeah, Colorado's going to get healthier. At the very least, if they get their key guys back, like Landeskog and Makar is 100% healthy, especially with the way Byram's been playing lately, it's going to be really tough to get Colorado out. And if Dallas and Winnipeg keep losing points and Colorado keeps getting them, then eventually Colorado's first in the division, and then they have home ice advantage on top of that too. So I think there were a lot of people writing off Colorado. This is why during the season I don't change my prediction of who's going to win the Stanley Cup. My prediction before the season was Colorado over the Rangers in the final. And I'm glad I didn't go through and change it when Colorado was outside the playoffs, that I didn't go through and change it when the Rangers were having trouble, because when you change it frequently, it doesn't mean anything. So I hold myself to that and I say, okay, if I'm going to update it, it has to be at playoff time. That's it. I also want to say, too, I often see a lot of criticism of analysts. Usually the studio analysts. I don't envy their job. And there's a reason I don't envy their job. I enjoy watching hockey. Um, I enjoy watching hockey and I enjoy reporting on it for all you fine people. But I can't imagine having to do in between each period analysis where I try to point out what's wrong. And I'm trying to point out, well, I think this is wrong and this is wrong. And you have to, come up with different things every game. And I think that has to be frustrating at times. I can imagine there has to be times for an analyst where it's like, I don't know. I already talked about that last week and I talked about that the week before. I don't know. Well, you got 10 minutes. All right. Well, get me footage of I don't know. Do you have anything fun with rabbits or no? Okay. All right. Fine. Well, I don't know. I really, so I don't envy that job. It has to be a tough one to come up with. And also, the analysis when it from one to the next may not be of the same quality, but I mean that's going to happen. And again, I saw some comments about Sportsnet and some of their studio work, and yeah, some of it may be better than some of the rest of it, but I don't envy that job. That has to be tough because there has to be games where you're like, I don't know what footage do I want to pull for this. I don't know. And I wanted to say too, while I've got everybody's attention, I can't use NHL footage. I'm just gonna say, because I've started to see that on the channel again of, well, why don't you use highlights? Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I can't, because that's copyright. And one of two things happens: either the NHL says that's a nice video you've done, it'll be monetized, but we make all the money off of it. So the NHL can do that. And or they can just say that's copyrighted material and I can get a copyright strike on my channel, which means I can't do live streams. And then if it were to happen twice, I lose all monetization on my channel. And if it happened a third time, channel's gone. So I don't mess with that. I absolutely do not mess with that. I've gone through the copyright process once, never going through it again. So that's why I don't do live streams during games, because they can also flag audio. So the whole, well, if you don't show it on TV, yeah, they can also flag the audio. So if I'm watching a game and I have the webcam on and I'm live streaming, I cannot risk having even the audio show up, because even that can get flagged. It's rare, but it can get flagged. So there you go. A little bit of reasoning for me to all you fine people on the internet, but live streams are still a thing, and I enjoy having the hangout live streams where I can give you guys 100% of my attention, because seriously, when I'm watching the games, I don't react to things very much. There's very, very rarely a reaction to anything, so it's kind of boring to watch me on live streams, to be honest, when it's a game on, because I'm really enthralled with the game. All right, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And one final question for people who watch this whole thing to the end. With Barzal out indefinitely, does Lou make another move, or could he look at this roster and say, you know what, without Barzal, and maybe sell off a couple of assets at the deadline? Let me know your thoughts on what you think Lamoriello's going to do. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. I guess, and one other thing too, it does mean that if the Islanders miss the playoffs, Lou Lamoriello can say, well, we did lose Matt Barzal, and that played a big role, and then he gets another year as GM. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.